Welcome, bienvenue to Focus on French Cinema 2023, the 18th edition of the Best of Contemporary Francophone Cinema presented by the Alliance Française of Greenwich. My name is Renee Ketchum, and I am the Managing Director of Focus on French Cinema. We are joined today by Gail Coveney, Co-President of the Alliance Française of Greenwich, FFC Director of Programming Joe Myers, and our guest François Pirot, Director of the U.S. premiere screening of Ailleurs si j'y suis, Let's Get Lost, and hopefully Suzanne Clément, who is filming right now, and we hope will join us during the recording for a conversation on this great film that will premiere at Focus on French Cinema 2023. Ellen Soucek is also on hand today for any interpretation. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Francois, I really love this film, and it was interesting. When I watched it the first time last year, it coincided with, I got hooked on YouTube videos about people going off the grid, building little cabins in the woods, living in vans. And your movie really is a comic and dramatic treatment of sort of that idea of getting away from your life. And I read a quote from you about the genesis of the film where you said it's about the idea that being normal means you failed at life.
Yeah. Well, it's. I think I'm going to do it in French, if you don't mind, because it's going to be easier. Oui, alors cette idée qu'aujourd'hui, être normal, entre guillemets, on est plutôt poussé à être exceptionnel aujourd'hui. On nous dit plutôt que si on ne fait pas des choses exceptionnelles ou si notre vie ne sort pas du commun, quelque part, on aurait raté quelque chose. Maybe I let...
Yes, it really started out with the idea that nowadays to be normal, in quotation marks, is really to be exceptional. And that if you are normal, you have to be always pushing towards being exceptional, always coming up with a new project or doing something that's out of the norm.
The film shows the film shows how Matou's decision to sort of go in deep into the backyard and live by a pond not only impacts his life, but it stirs something in all of your other characters. It's like he is an inspiration for everybody to think about what they're doing in their own lives. It's really a fascinating concept.
Oui, ça c'était vraiment une idée formelle que je voulais. C'était qu'un personnage, en faisant un pas de côté, déclenche l'action des autres personnages. Et j'aimais bien l'idée que c'est un personnage qui ne va rien faire dans la forêt. Et c'est son inaction, quelque part, son arrêt, qui provoque l'action des autres. Et en plus, il n'y va pas vraiment de manière volontaire, il ne l'a pas prémédité. Son escapade, sa sortie dans la forêt est plutôt le symptôme d'un burn-out presque, qu'une volonté vraiment de sa part. Enfin, ça, c'est autre chose. Mais... Et donc, la structure narrative fonctionnait comme vous l'avez décrite, et ça, c'est quelque chose que j'avais envie d'essayer. Enfin, je vais peut-être laisser traduire d'abord.
It's okay, you can continue.
Et de construire le film un peu comme une fugue en musique, donc une écriture polyphonique où le thème est exposé par le personnage de Mathieu, et ensuite les autres personnages commencent à chanter entre guillemets des mélodies en parallèle qui se résolvent dans un accord final à la fin où ils vont tous quelque part dans la forêt.
Yes, it really started out with a formal idea of doing exactly as you described. I wanted a character who was somebody who was really going to step aside from things, but whose very act of stepping aside triggers the behavior of the other characters. And basically, when he's in the forest, he's doing nothing. He has no action, but it's his inaction or non-action that really promotes the action or provokes the action of the other characters. And his actual going into the forest is not something that he had decided in advance. It was nothing premeditated, but perhaps it was a reflection of burnout that he was experiencing. But he actually goes there, and it's part of then what becomes the narrative structure of the film, which, if you think about it, to use a musical analogy, Mathieu is the theme. He sings the theme, and then the other characters come in and they all add their own voices to the melody that is being sung, to the end where they all come together into a chorus.
One of the most magical things about this movie, from my point of view, was the way that you make the characters' confusion very funny. While you're dealing with serious matters in people's lives, their confusion, their inability to figure out what the next step is, becomes very funny.
Oui, alors ça, c'était aussi une volonté de départ. Ce sont des personnages qui, en effet, sont tous dans des moments de vie, de transition un peu difficiles, où ils ont du mal à accepter. Ah, Suzanne est là.
Allô?
Hey, allô.
J'essaie de voir tout le monde, attends. Ok, vas-y, continue.
Ouais, je termine ça. Puis, ah, voilà.
Mais oui, vas-y.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hello,
Donc-
hi.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hi. I'm trying to see everybody, but hi.
Et donc, qui sont dans des moments de leur vie où ils ont un peu du mal à accepter ce qu'ils sont en train de devenir. Ils savent voilà, qu'ils doivent réinvestir les choses et qu'ils ont un peu du mal à le faire. Et, mais par contre, je ne voulais pas être... Eux sont angoissés, eux sont névrosés, mais je ne voulais pas que le film le soit lui-même, que le film soit dans leur point de vue à eux ou dans leur angoisse. Je voulais justement prendre un peu de distance et les regarder avec un minimum d'ironie et de drôlerie, parce que d'abord, ce sont quand même des personnages issus d'un milieu socio-économique assez privilégié, donc qui ont quelque part le luxe de pouvoir se poser ces questions-là. Et aussi parce que je pense que face à ces questions qui sont plus de l'ordre de l'angoisse existentielle, une des solutions ou quelque chose qu'on peut faire, c'est essayer d'en rire. Et c'est d'ailleurs exactement ce que fait c'est la conclusion quelque part, enfin c'est là on dévoile quelque chose, mais le personnage joué par Suzanne arrive quelque part à traverser un peu cette étape difficile ou cette crise dans laquelle elle était, en ayant du recul sur elle-même et en ayant de l'ironie sur elle-même. Et je voulais que le film, comme le personnage de Suzanne, parvienne à avoir cette ironie sur la situation et garde une attache, enfin, soit quand même avec les personnages, donc ne s'en moque pas ou ne soit pas complètement détaché, mais soit quand même un petit peu distant pour pouvoir en rire. Et cette tonalité-là entre les deux est vraiment ce que je cherchais.
Yes, this was also something that was part of my idea straight from the beginning of the film, was to really approach these people at a point of transition in their lives. It's a moment where they're all questioning, who am I? Who am I becoming? What am I doing? What have I been doing in my life? Does my life have meaning? And am I failing at what I'm doing? And so they're all very in a state that's very anxious. They're all very nervous, but I didn't want the viewers of the film to experience that same feeling of anxiety or nervousness. I wanted to just take a step back with a little bit of distance and not to look at things specifically from their point of view, but from this distance point of view. And I wanted to use a minimum of irony, but also to use some humor in the way that I chose to look at them. And all of these characters are characters who come from a privileged background. They all have the luxury of being able to take the actions that they do in these films, to step back and ask themselves these questions. And it's this existential anxiety that they have that I wanted everyone to be able to see some humor in it, and to see that in the end, the ability to laugh at things, and particularly even to laugh at yourself, is something that helps them all to deal with this particular crisis moment in their lives. And for example, Suzanne's character, she plays someone who does experience a kind of experience unlike what she's had before, but she does it ultimately with some irony. And so she's able to get through it. And I think I wanted everyone to be able to still have that connection with the characters, but not so close, to make it a little bit of a distance so we can see them as wholes.
Suzanne, it was really interesting watching. I've seen the film twice now, and your character is dealing with so much with her daughter, with her husband, with her new boyfriend, the idea of going off to the jungle and exploring. And you walk such a fine line between comedy and drama in the way your character is depicted. That is that especially challenging as an actress to keep this woman real while she's dealing with such extravagant challenges?
Yes, can I speak English? Is that okay
Yes,
with you?
yes,
Okay,
yes.
sure. Okay. And with François, you
Yes,
gotta
yes, of course.
understand.
I didn't dare to do it. I should, but so you're
All
braver
right.
than I.
I'm here
But
for
I
you.
think
But
the fine line
but the
has to do.
translation is so good. The translation is so good. I'm going to
Yeah.
keep on talking in French.
It's true. It's a job. It's an art and it's a job. The answer would be also it's a mix of what I do and what François has directed me to do, because he has a very interesting way of seeing things, and he's not totally white or black. He's specifically the type of director that is a lot of fun to. Oh no, we. Shit. I have to go. It's no, I'll finish like 1 minute. But yeah, it's got a lot to do with François. He's to me, he's kind of the Woody Allen of Belgium.
Belgium.
Yeah.
I agree.
He's always also very neurotic in his directing, and so there's and he always wants a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but not too much of this. So and that's great. That's great for actors, because it's demanding. It's like you constantly have to ask you not to just let go and play just the comedy or just play the drama. There's always like, should we just keep a foot back from either drama or comedy? And that was very, very interesting to play. Very nice. That she's got a lot of great stuff going on. Yes.
Yeah.
I can relate. Yes. Sometimes in my life where I've been like over, like completely almost you think you're in love with somebody younger and you like everything is possible, but the other person is totally not in the same place than you, but you want to believe it because it would solve everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a great script to dive in.
Terrific.
I have to go because I'm doing a TV show. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry.
Thank you for popping in.
Thank you, Suzanne. It was great to see you.
Thank you,
Suzanne.
François. Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, guys. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
No, it was great to have you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Salut, François.
Salut.
Bye.
Now, Francois, Suzanne mentioned Woody Allen, and I must say that when I was watching the movie the second time, especially, I also thought of Paul Mazursky, who in films like Bloom in Love and Unmarried Woman dealt with people going through crises, very serious crises in their life, but with humor. And I mean, does Woody Allen or Paul Mazursky play any influence on your filmmaking or your thinking?
Oui, c'est vrai que Woody Allen, c'est un auteur que j'adore, qui est beaucoup plus doué que moi, évidemment, dans son écriture, mais c'est vrai que j'ai revu dernièrement, par exemple, pour parler de lui, Husband and Wives, qui est un film tourné à la manière d'un documentaire où il filme vraiment donc la séparation de deux couples et toutes les difficultés qu'ils traversent dans cette séparation, mais à la fois avec un très grand réalisme et avec une grande ironie en même temps. Et ça, je trouve, c'est vrai que, voilà, pour donner un exemple d'un de ces films, Husband and Wives est pour moi presque l'idéal de la comédie. Alors évidemment, je ne me mesure pas à Woody Allen, mais d'ailleurs, je ne mets pas en scène les mêmes personnages. Ils ont peut-être le même type de névrose, mais le milieu socioculturel duquel ils sont issus n'est pas du tout le même. Ce ne sont pas des intellectuels new-yorkais très cultivés et qui vont chez un psychanalyste et qui peuvent parler et exprimer leurs sentiments. Du tout. Au contraire, mes personnages viennent d'une région et d'un milieu où exprimer les sentiments est quelque chose de difficile et que le rapport à la parole n'est pas du tout le même. Donc l'humour ne vient pas ne vient pas vraiment de ce qu'ils disent, ou alors plutôt de la maladresse avec laquelle ils disent les choses ou de la façon de ne pas les dire.
Yes, I think that Woody Allen is a filmmaker whose work I really admire, and certainly a much more gifted writer. I recently watched one of his films, Husbands and Wives, and what I noticed in it is he does it in almost, it's two couples that are in the stages of breaking up, and it's done almost in a documentary style, and how he manages to combine this documentary style with the fiction of the story and the realism, but the irony at the same time. It's really something that, to me, is the ideal of comedy, and something that is really admirable in his film. And I don't really measure myself up with him, but it's something that is really the gold standard. And in a way, my characters are similar in that perhaps they have the same kind of neuroses, but they come from completely different socioeconomic backgrounds. Woody Allen's characters, they're New York intellectuals, very verbal, they're all seeing their analysts, and they're expressing themselves in ways where sometimes what they're saying is not really what they're thinking. Whereas the characters in my film come from a completely different background and do express themselves in very different ways.
One of the things about the movie that I found really intriguing, Francois, is the way that visually you have two distinct styles. When Mathieu goes off into the woods, the ratio becomes narrower, and it's almost like he's in his own movie, and then the characters are in the main movie, or if that's the right word. And then there's a scene at the end, near the end, where they all seem to be in his movie. And could you talk a little bit about your decision to have those two different styles within your movie?
Yes. Très vite, je me suis rendu compte que c'était pas la description réaliste d'aller dans la forêt qui m'intéressait. Je voulais pas faire un film survivaliste, mais je voulais épouser plutôt le sentiment de bien-être que ressentait mon personnage, et je voulais aussi donner une forme de conte à ce qui lui arrive, parce que ce n'est pas tout à fait réaliste qu'un personnage aussi conventionnel que lui aille dans la forêt, mais la fiction me permet justement de créer ce contraste, de faire un acte très radical à quelqu'un qui ne l'est pas du tout. Mais pour faire passer ça, il était nécessaire aussi peut-être de faire basculer le film dans une autre dimension, dans une dimension un peu plus merveilleuse, un peu plus fantastique. Et c'est d'ailleurs un cerf donc, qui vient chercher le personnage dans son jardin. Et dans les contes traditionnels, le cerf, c'est souvent un animal qui fait passer un personnage d'un monde à un autre. Et donc, en utilisant ce cerf, je pose très rapidement le fait qu'on est dans une réalité qui est plutôt sa perception à lui. Et donc, les scènes, en effet, de lui seul dans la forêt sont de son point de vue à lui, et qui est une façon de traduire plutôt l'espace mental dans lequel il se trouve que de le voir de façon réaliste dans la forêt. Et donc, j'ai décidé, en effet, d'adopter un autre style cinématographique qui est plus, oui, celui du conte ou du récit merveilleux que du récit réaliste. Je vais peut-être m'arrêter là pour la traduction déjà. Et je parlerai du format après.
I realized very early on that I didn't want the parts that were in the forest to be realistic, because what he does is not something realistic. This is a very conventional person, and the idea that he's just going to up and walk off and go in the forest is not really something that is a realistic idea. What I wanted to really focus on was the whole feeling of well-being and the feeling that of what he's seeking when he's in the forest, and to really emphasize what's almost a fairy tale quality of the story, because it's not something that a conventional person is going to do, and a conventional person wouldn't do this. So this aspect of the story was very important to me, and fiction is something that allows you to do this. You can take a character like that and put them in this kind of situation. And so I wanted to create this idea of the forest as having this sort of marvelous, fantastic quality to it, and also to have the character, I guess you could call it, of the deer to be a figure that's important, because very often in fairy tales and in those kinds of stories, it's the deer that helps to guide the person from one reality or one world to another. And so that also continued on this theme of the fantastical, and the deer represents something that's exceptional for him. He's the one who sees him, and and he's the one who really is the one who that's his fantasy at the moment in the film, and it's the mental space, the mental area where he finds himself. And so when I had to go back to reality, I had to do something a little different.
Et le format donc de l'image, en effet, est plus étroit quand on est dans la forêt avec lui. Alors ça, c'est aussi pour une raison esthétique. Donc, c'est pour affirmer ce changement de genre, mais c'est aussi pour une raison esthétique, parce que je trouve que la forêt est un lieu aussi vertical qu'horizontal, parce qu'il y a les arbres, la verticalité des arbres, et en plus, j'avais aussi envie de passer des moments seuls avec un personnage, et je trouve que c'est un format un peu plus intimiste, parce qu'il laisse moins d'espace autour du personnage, et donc j'avais vraiment du mal à choisir, parce qu'à l'extérieur, par contre, je voulais utiliser le cinémascope pour souvent mettre les personnages ensemble dans le même cadre, et je n'imaginais pas un autre format. Donc, je me suis aussi permis des choix esthétiques qui me semblaient correspondre à chaque espace, et je me suis permis de ne pas choisir, et de ne pas pouvoir revenir en arrière aussi. Donc, alors, ce qui peut paraître peut-être contre naturel, c'est que quand on est dans la nature, c'est plus serré, alors qu'on pourrait imaginer qu'on respirerait mieux dans la nature. C'est plus serré, mais je trouve que c'est juste parce que le monde dans lequel Mathieu va est un monde réduit, est un monde où il a vraiment besoin d'aller, c'est-à-dire un monde où il ressent des sensations très simples, prendre le soleil, nager, dormir, et il en a vraiment besoin, mais la vraie vie n'est pas là, c'est juste une partie du monde qui lui a manqué, voilà. Et la vraie vie est après. Mais par contre, c'est vrai que les autres personnes, enfin, pas par contre, excusez-moi, et les autres personnages, à un moment donné, je voulais qu'ils soient aussi contaminés par la forêt, et que la forêt ait aussi un effet pour eux. C'est pour ça qu'à un moment donné, dans la dernière nuit, je les mets aussi dans ce même format d'image, comme si eux aussi avaient leur expérience de forêt qui leur permet de s'apaiser et de se transformer également.
Now, to speak a little bit about the format, I did choose the choice of having the forest scenes be narrower was an aesthetic choice for me. And it's something that I wanted to do because it really affirms the change from its regular world into the world of the forest. And I realized as I was approaching it that the forest is something that is as vertical as it is horizontal. And because I was going to be focusing on one person in this environment, I felt that the narrowness was the best way to do it. And that format enabled me to do that. And it's also more intimate. And so I had a choice to make, and I thought that that would be the best way of conveying that. But at the same time, when I had the scenes with everyone else, I wanted to have scenes with multiple people, and I wanted to do it in CinemaScope. And so there again, that would have been an aesthetic choice. So by having both of them, I didn't have to choose. I was able to have both of them. And you may think it's almost like counterintuitive that the forest, which we think of as a big open space, is the area that's really more narrow. But it's something that really represents the reduced world that Mathieu finds himself in, and also a world where he experiences feelings that are very simple, things that he was missing in his wider life outside. And in the end, when I bring the other characters in, I wanted them also to come into this same environment of the forest in a way to have the forest contaminate them too, so that they too would experience some of the things that Mathieu experiences.
One of the things that impressed me, especially when I watched this movie for the second time, Francois, was the power you give to actors, even in the smallest roles. The scene where Mathu's boss goes home after his adventure and he says to his wife, "Do you love me?" She doesn't say a word, but the look on her face speaks volumes. You know, I thought that was an incredible moment, and you're working with that actress to come up with it was extraordinary.
Thank you. Merci, c'est vrai que c'est un de mes plans préférés du film, parce que je voulais montrer cet homme qui revient, qui quitte son travail, qui accepte de lâcher son travail et qui revient dans le lieu qu'il va devoir investir, qui est celui de sa maison où habite son épouse, mais qui elle, a appris à vivre sans lui, parce qu'il était absent tout le temps. Et il lui pose cette question, il lui demande si elle l'aime, et elle ne répond pas. Et ça, c'est vrai que ce genre de moment qui est très délicat, parce que je ne voulais pas qu'en ne répondant pas, elle dise non. Je voulais qu'en ne répondant pas, elle dise, est-ce que cette question, vu la durée de notre couple, est-ce que cette question a encore vraiment du sens à être posée de cette manière-là? Et en ne répondant pas aussi, elle lui dit peut-être pas consciemment, mais c'est une façon aussi de lui dire, tu es là, mais moi je suis aussi, je ne suis pas seulement à toi. Ne crois pas qu'en revenant, je ne vais être là que pour toi. Enfin, c'est une interprétation, mais je voulais, dans ce petit moment-là, arriver à encapsuler la complexité de la relation entre cet homme et cette femme, qui est un très vieux couple, et avec un homme qui a une vie professionnelle très, très dense, et d'essayer de montrer qu'il y a quelque chose d'à la fois de très fort entre eux, mais qui doit continuer à être alimenté. Voilà. Et que la question de l'amour dans un couple qui a passé autant de temps ensemble, la formuler, voilà, est-ce que ça encore... est-ce que c'est comme ça qu'on en parle bien? C'est pas très clair ce que je dis, je me rends compte, mais c'est justement ce genre de moment où on a travaillé donc avec les acteurs justement pour parler de ça, parler du fait d'être ensemble depuis si longtemps, parler de la relation qu'ils entretenaient l'un avec l'autre, du rapport de force qu'ils avaient. Elle est en train de peindre pendant ce plan, et donc elle est tout aussi concentrée sur ça que sur lui. Et lui, peut-être pour la première fois, il est curieux de ça. Et donc ça, c'est vraiment aussi un travail. On a pas mal discuté de la vie du couple pour arriver à ce petit moment que j'aime bien, parce qu'ils sont parvenus, les acteurs, à créer dans ce silence toute la complexité qui existe entre eux. Voilà. Je les remercie pour ça. Mais voilà. Excusez-moi pour la longueur de la réponse.
Yes. That scene is actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to show this man who was, now he's left his job. This job was everything. He spent all his time there. It was a very dense work life that he had. And now he's come back to his home and his wife to another area in which he is invested. And his wife is there. And yet his wife, in the time that he's been absent, which has been many times, has really learned to live on her own. So you have the two of them coming together, and it's really kind of a delicate moment for them as a couple, because they really have to ask, when he asks her, do you still love me? It's really almost like she's asking, well, is this really the question we should be asking each other? Because is it valid for a couple that's been married for so long, that has shared their life together for so long? And the fact that she doesn't really respond is a reflection of the fact that, in a way, she's telling him, I'm not only yours, I'm not only here for you. And now that you're back, I'm not just here for you. And so, this perhaps is the interpretation on my part, but I think in a way it really encapsulates what a relationship between a couple that has been together for a very long time and has shared a relationship for a very long time is, because the relationship between them is something that's very strong and their relationship is still valid. So it really focuses on, well, how will they approach it then in the future? What are the questions are they going to be asking each other? And in this scene, she's painting and she's concentrating almost as much on what it is that she's painting as what is going on between them. And he, for perhaps one of the first times, is beginning to look to see what it is that she's doing. He becomes curious about what it is she's doing. So it's another reflection of their life as a couple. When I worked with the actors, we talked a lot about this, like how to approach this moment. And I think that the silence that is in the scene is really something that is really very, very important.
Absolutely. One last question for you, Francois, and it's about interpretation, I guess. One of my problems with a lot of our American films is the need to have a conclusive ending where everything is tied up with a bow and we can leave the theater knowing exactly what's going to happen next. You give us the opportunity in your film at the end to really do some work, some thinking about what we've just seen. And I think the ending, depending on whether you're a glass half full or a glass half empty kind of a person, you allow us the room to really decide what's going to happen the next day. I appreciate that. And I mean, is that part of your philosophy as a filmmaker to allow us that kind of thinking after the movie?
Oui, oui, tout à fait. Je trouve que un film, certaines choses doivent se conclure pour qu'on ne soit pas dans la frustration, mais il est toujours important que le spectateur puisse lui-même continuer à s'écrire l'histoire, ce qui permet à l'histoire d'habiter le spectateur plus longtemps aussi. Donc il y a cette envie globale, mais aussi plus précisément ici, je me suis rendu compte que quand on essayait de raconter des crises existentielles, c'est la crise qui est universelle. Le problème est bien plus universel que la solution qu'on trouve. Je trouve que voilà, les problèmes sont plus universels que les solutions. Et montrer ces personnages qui ont retrouvé de l'apaisement et un peu de lucidité sur eux-mêmes, les montrer faire ce qu'ils vont faire ou choisir de faire pour que ça aille mieux, souvent n'est pas très intéressant. Et donc, voilà, je sais que c'est frustrant pour certains spectateurs qui ont l'impression qu'on revient au début. Mais moi, évidemment, c'est pas ça que je voulais raconter. Je veux raconter qu'ils reviennent en effet dans leur vie, mais qui est ce qui existe réellement, les relations qu'ils entretiennent aux autres, mais qu'ils reviennent avec plus de force pour en faire quelque chose et les investir. Alors, pour la fin, spécifiquement, les derniers plans où c'est un couple qui se regarde dans les yeux sans rien dire, je voulais justement montrer que Mathieu, qui est incapable de regarder sa femme dans les yeux au début, qui fuit toute discussion parce qu'il n'est pas capable de prendre ça en main, quand il sort de la forêt, il est là, il est présent, il la regarde, et donc ils vont parler en tout cas, ils vont se parler et ils vont décider quelque chose. Alors très concrètement, vont-ils rester ensemble ou pas? On n'en sait pas, on n'en sait rien, mais en tout cas, ils vont s'attaquer à la chose, ils vont y réfléchir réellement, sans partir, sans essayer de trouver des solutions faciles comme pendant le film, mais vraiment en communiquant, en étant ensemble et en réfléchissant à ça ensemble.
Yes, I think that for some viewers, it can be very frustrating if things aren't all tied up nice and neatly at the end. But I think that what I wanted was for the viewers of the film to, they've just spent time inhabiting this world and the lives of these characters, to really continue to think about it and to reflect upon it in relationship to their own, their own lives and their own feelings, because I think that this type of existential crisis is something that is universal, as are the solutions to existential crises of this type. So this universality is something that's important, although I do think that if you were to end it up with everybody finding peace and healing and everything turns out all right, and they've chosen what's best, it's not always something that's very interesting. So I wanted to leave these open ends and to show people, some people say, well, at the end, the people are just returning to the same situation that they were in the beginning, that is, the cycle is renewed. But in fact, it's not, because what they're doing is they're returning back to their lives, but with a kind of new strength that enables them to tackle some of the issues that they're dealing with in their lives. And so, for example, with Mathieu, you see him, he goes back to his wife. And at the beginning, when we see them not talking, what he's doing is he's avoiding talking with her. He's fleeing having those discussions. But now that he's returned and he's had this experience, he's far more present. And you get the feeling that they will be talking, and they will be talking about what their future is together. Will they stay together? They're going to attack the problem. They're going to think it through. And they're not going to just rely on some passive solution.
Thank you for doing this, Francois, and congratulations again on your film. It's just wonderful. And thank you, Ellen, for translating.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And thanks a lot for inviting me here in this virtual world we're in.
Yes.
And for your attention to the movie, and I hope it will be well received.
Oh, we know it will be, François.
We know it will. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for contacting Suzanne. It was wonderful to have her as well for a few minutes.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome.